Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. A promise of 2,000 housing units for Guyanese reiterated by President Ali. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 15th August 2023. Details after this important message.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Guyana's President Irfan Ali has unveiled ambitious plans for the housing sector in Region 3. The head of state announced that the government aims to finalize the construction of approximately 2,000 units by the close of 2024. This initiative aligns with the administration's broader commitment to addressing the housing needs of the country's citizens. Shamar Alin of HGP Nightly News has more.
The president said this to a small gathering of people from Iflot during a walkabout in that village on Thursday afternoon.
We're moving to the model of home construction because we achieve economies of scale and we're able to deliver the product, a house to you, far less the cost.
Meanwhile, His Excellency remarked that some units have already been completed by the Ministry of Housing and will be handed over in another month's time or so to those families who have been qualified.
But I think we are in a position also to have some persons moving immediately to their homes because we have some homes already completed. So based on those who are in more critical need, those persons maybe will be able to move into their homes within a month or a month and a half. So
President Ali announced that he is pleased that persons are moving toward home ownership and further that his government stands committed to working with everyone to ensure that they live a more prosperous life. The president also spoke about the surrounding landscape and how it will change over time.
all of these will actually be frontlands because as you can see, we've started the new highways. We're doing the highway now from Schoonard to Crane. That highway will be open long before the end of the year. And then there is a whole new gas to shore surface, road surface being constructed.
In that regard, the president urged persons to not be dismayed if they currently receive a land that appears to be a long distance away from the main access road and other amenities, as the road networks will be connected and those lands will become front lands eventually. The president also reminded that his administration will ensure adequate access to health care throughout the construction of a new regional hospital and the upgrade of several existing health facilities. Reporter for HGP Nightly News, Shamar Allen.
Leader of the People's Action Movement in St. Kitts and Nevis has given the current St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party-led federal administration a failing grade of D, saying that after 1 year in office, they have failed on multiple fronts. Glenn Bart of SKN Newsline reports.
Speaking at a 10th August press conference held at the party's headquarters in Bastille, PAM's political leader Sean Richards described the administration led by Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew as inept and still searching for a way to deliver on their own promises.
From listening to the many ordinary citizens and residents who have spoken to us in the streets, aired their disappointments and utter frustration on the talk shows and other media platforms, those who organize in the bars at the ferry terminal and around the country over the sluggish economy, those who bent over the fence to their neighbors, it is clear that from all walks of life, people's anxiety and delusion are real, and their voices of condemnation are growing louder and stronger day by day. especially those who were enticed to vote for this government in the 2022 elections. 1 year in, and the chickens have already come home to roost. We have all come to the full realization that this inept, incompetent regime does not have the wherewithal to govern. 1 year on, and they are still desperately searching for the formula on how to deliver on their own promises. Never mind the brave faces they're trying to put on in public. They know that they have fallen woefully short in just about every category on the rating scale. From the housing fiasco, with not even one model house to show to date, to the unresolved water woes, to the lack of support for farmers, to the spiraling cost of living, they are fully aware that they have been weighed in the balance and have been found wanting. People are fed up because we are the ones bearing the brunt of their failures, their gross incompetence, their mismanagement, and their many unfulfilled promises.
According to Richards, the SKN-LP-led government has failed to effectively stimulate the economy, deliver on housing, and failed to properly address issues in health, crime, and education. Glenn Bart reporting for SKN Newsline.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Over in Jamaica, NCB Financial Group addresses leadership changes and plans to cut costs. Javon Keys of TVJ Business tells us more.
Chairman of the NCB Financial Group, Michael Lee Chin, has given some more insights into the reasons behind the recent leadership changes at the company. Issues of dividend and cost savings were also addressed. In a briefing with the media Thursday morning, Mr. Leachin said the changes had to be made based on shareholder sentiment and key areas deemed prime for improvement.
Cost to income ratio, meaning lack of efficiency. We can do a much better job at not only defining what governance means, but actually living it. And as you heard from the investor forum, I see governance as starting with the individual, right, and it becomes part of the culture. And thirdly, the customer experience. I wasn't happy with the customer experience. Every time I get too many complaints. So for those reasons, we had to make a change.
This leads into the new focus of efficiency, governance, and customer experience. He lamented the need for leadership to send clear messages and adapt to changing dynamics. So is it fair to say then that based on what was happening before, you weren't seeing that from the previous leadership?
You can always improve, and it is now clear. E, G, C. Everybody, you go and ask the staff members, what's E? They'll tell you. What's G? They'll tell you. What's C? They'll tell you.
This, he says, will lead to payment of dividend.
We're working assiduously to make sure dividends resume by the end of this year.
The board met on August 9 and decided not to declare a dividend. The last payout was made in May 2021. Meanwhile, interim group CEO Robert Almeida says some areas of cost saving have been earmarked.
We've identified an action annual recurring cost reductions that would be in the $6 to $8 billion range, and they are actioned. So $6 to $8 billion, and they have been actioned, and we're on our way to fully implementing them.
Executive compensation, consultancy, and digital innovation are the main areas of focus. He also says there are plans to get the group's cost-to-income ratio down to about 60% in about a year.
Trinidad and Tobago's opposition leader is claiming a government minister dropped off his gun to an elite police unit after CARICOM decided in April to ban assault weapons for civilian use in CARICOM states. And as campaign of the local government elections enters the final stretch, the opposition leader has predicted a win for her party in the next general election too. TV6's Jewel Brown reports.
You think I don't know about a matic weapon somebody dropped off at MOPS? Let me tell you. We know which dealer sold it. We know the minister who bought it. We know which senior officer organized for the minister to get rid of it.
Opposition leader Carlo Prasad made the claim during a UNC-NTA campaign meeting in Arima on Thursday night, along with an apparent reference to the police service's elite multi-option police section known as MOPS.
We know the officer who dealt with it at MOPS, and we also know, we know the serial number. We are just waiting. When the news broke about automatic weapons and rowdy sale make it illegal, it was already illegal, as Gary told. It was already against the law. But the minister gets so frightened when rowdy started to talk about this automatic. The fella find a way to drop it off, hide and send it back to the police at MOPS.
In April, CARICOM heads of government, including Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, announced a decision to implement a ban on the civilian use of assault weapons in CARICOM. The opposition leader maintained her party's position that stand your ground legislation similar to that in parts of the U.S. for homeowners with licensed guns is needed in Trinidad and Tobago. In responding to the government's position that self-defense is already available to citizens under existing local laws, Mrs. Prasad gave a prediction for the general election due in 2025.
We will offer a gun amnesty to all the PNM MPs and commentators who have legal guns so they can come and give back the guns. Give it back, give it back, give it back.
The local government elections take place on Monday. Jubal Brown, TV6 News.
Paul Moore brings us a regional roundup from HGP News.
The two-day retreat planned for Caribbean Community CARICOM leaders to be held in Dominica next week will no longer take place. The retreat, which had been scheduled for August 18 to 19, would now take place after some of those expected to attend will not be available. At the end of their 4th to 5th summit in Port of Spain last month, the regional leaders announced that the two-day retreat would allow for a review of a number of reports, including regional governance and strengthening functional cooperation, ahead of their next midterm summit scheduled for Guyana. An American, Lindsay Shiver, who is accused of conspiring with her alleged lover and another man to kill her husband, has been charged and released on $100,000 bail when she appeared before a Bahamian Supreme Court. Lindsay's alleged co-conspirators, Terrence Adrian Bethel, 28, and Farron Newbold Jr., 29, had previously been released on $20,000 bail. Lindsay of Thomasville, Georgia, is accused of plotting with two Bahamian natives to kill her estranged husband, Robert Shiver, who was vacationing at his family's luxury property on the Abaco Islands. The murder plot was discovered after police allegedly found WhatsApp messages on Bethel's cell phone. The Shivers, who had been married for over a decade, had filed divorce proceedings in April after Robert allegedly discovered his wife's affair with Bethel. And the leader of a prominent Colombian criminal group who pleaded guilty to U.S. drug trafficking charges was sentenced to 45 years in prison by a judge in Brooklyn who called him more prolific than the late kingpin Pablo Escobar. In sentencing Dairo Antonio David, better known as Otoniel, the U.S. District Judge called the nearly 100,000 kg of cocaine shipped to the United States while leading the Clan del Golfo cartel extraordinary. The 45-year sentence had been requested by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn. Otoniel was arrested by Colombian armed forces near the South American country's border with Panama in October 2021. He was extradited to the United States in May 2022 and pleaded guilty the following January.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.